Fitbit. Once the biggest player in the fitness tracker and smartwatch market, but nowadays, not many people seem to talk about them. At least, that's how it has been since Apple came out with their Apple Watch lineup. Fitbit was bought by Google back in 2021 and is still making smartbands, but they've mostly fallen into the background due to the Google Pixel Watch and Samsung's own competitor, which was the Galaxy Watch. But should you buy a Fitbit? That's what we'll be looking at right after the intro. In order to answer this question properly, we should first take a look at a modern Fitbit. The average scenario where someone would be looking at a Fitbit nowadays would be if they need a good quality fitness tracker that doesn't break the bank. Therefore, we'll be looking at their most budget-friendly option, which is the Inspire 3. The Inspire 3 comes in 3 different colors: Midnight Zen, Morning Glow, and this beautiful Lilac Bliss that we have here. It has a 0.76-inch AMOLED display, it's rated for 10 days of battery life, and it only takes 2 hours to fully charge it. Workout tracking is included and sleep tracking, similar to most modern smartwatches. It also has a feature similar to the breathing and mindfulness app on the Apple Watch, which is called stress management. It basically rates your ability to manage stress throughout the day, so that's pretty cool. It also has other well-being and health tracking features such as average heart rate tracking, average exercise tracking, similar to the Apple Watch, while also measuring your heart rate every 5 seconds during regular use and every second while you're working out. It also stores your fitness activity on the watch for an entire week, so you can look back on it through the watch itself, and then you can also access archived versions of that from your phone. It also stores your fitness data, like averages, for about a month before it deletes them from the watch and moves it to being archived on your phone. This also has the blood oxygen tracking features that Apple introduced on their watches a couple years ago, and it also has water resistance for up to 50 meters underwater. Now that we've taken a look at the specs, let's go ahead and open this up. In order to open up the watch, we have one pull tab that we use. That was a very weak pull tab. Now we can go ahead and slide the box out of the sleeve. And then here we have the actual box that contains the Fitbit. Inside we have the Fitbit tracker itself, along with a quick start guide on the inside of the panel. And then we can go ahead and lift up this panel over here, and our watch just comes out. Inside we have a product information guide. So what you do here is you just pull this out of the box. That's nice. And here we have our Fitbit Inspire 3 charger. This isn't a super long cable, so you'll probably have to keep the watch pretty close to a table, so not as convenient as something like the Apple Watch's cable, which is pretty decently long. Inside the other sleeve is an extra band. It's nice to see that they've included this. This is, I believe, the longer of the 2 band sizes. And then we can go ahead and take the watch out of this cardboard casing here. Yep, they've got the smaller of the 2 bands already installed here. So, size comparison, this is what the bigger band looks like next to the smaller one. If this is for your kids, then you could probably stick with the smaller band. However, if this is for your own use as like a teenager or an adult, then you're probably going to want the larger band. So here we have this piece of paper covering the Fitbit screen. There it is, the Fitbit itself. This is really nice. I like the build quality here. This is like a nice metallic feeling build for the actual body of the watch. The band feels really nice too. The band is like kind of rubbery, but like it's not gonna grip onto your skin and like rip your arm hairs off like some watch bands do. But it's nice, it's comfortable, and feels like something that could be used day to day. Now, one thing I don't like about this compared to the Apple Watch is that you can't really lay this flat. The band is already bent by default, and that's because of the way that it's positioned onto the watch, so it's at an angle. Since this watch's charger can pretty easily be set on its side, it's not too big of a problem, because with the Apple Watch you kind of have to have it laying flat. Ooh, turned on. As I was saying, with the Apple Watch you kind of have to have it laying flat to charge it, unless you have one of those docks to hold it on sideways. Low battery. Maybe it's because these things have been sitting in their boxes for a while, because no one really buys Fitbits anymore, but whatever. download the Fitbit mobile app. Of course, in order to set up the watch, you need to install the Fitbit app. Taking a look at the build of the watch real quick, it feels kind of metallic and feels pretty premium for a $79 watch. Taking a look at the left side of the watch here, we have a touch-sensitive button. Yep, this isn't a physical button watch, and it vibrates whenever you click on it, which is pretty cool. The screen itself is only 0.76 inches, which is pretty small compared to something like an Apple Watch or even their Fitbit Charge 6 model, but it gets the job done, especially considering how budget-friendly this watch really is. But overall, the quality of this watch is really nice. But you know, if you're looking for a nice quality watch that doesn't break the bank, this is obviously where you would go. Now, as I had mentioned earlier, the main reason to buy a Fitbit would be if you wanted a fitness tracker that was of good quality that didn't break the bank. And this shows because Google tends to price the Fitbit bands, namely the Inspire 3 over here and the Charge 6, at about $110 or less, but when it comes to the full-size Fitbit smartwatches, they tend to price them at about the same price as their flagship Google Pixel Watch lineup, which also tends to have more features than the current Versa 4 and Sense 2, which makes them a worse choice compared to the modern Google Pixel Watch 2 and Watch 3 respectively. So should you still buy a Fitbit in 2025? Well, that depends on which model you choose. If you want something that'll reliably track your health and fitness and is budget friendly, then go with either the Inspire 3 over here or the Charge 6. However, if you want a full-size smartwatch, it might be best to avoid Fitbit, as Google has more spec'd out watches available for about the same price as the full-size Fitbit smartwatches. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and stay safe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!